Okay, so the normal means that it basically comes out or it goes into from the center of the object. There's more of a explanation to the normal, but um, the X would move it only in the X direction, whereas the Y would move it in or out from, up or down from, depending on what tool you've got selected, from the world space or Z. So for now, we're just going to stay on normal, and the only modification we'll make is to opacity. You'll want to bring opacity down to a low value, especially if you're working with a mouse, because it just is too hard to control with a mouse. If you're using the pressure sensitive pen set, then you could use a larger value because you have the ability to control with how hard you push. Okay, so I'm going to start by using the push. Okay, and notice as I mouse over, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Oops, if it'll let me to zoom in, maybe. No, it's not going to do it. Okay, so let's zoom in, and then with my brush tool, I'm pushing, right? And notice if I push, and I've not released, I've just pushed down, it's taking the measurements that I've got and pushing it all the way to the full extent. So you can see it's got a soft brush, and it will go as far as that. Where is the depth? Here's the maximum displacement. If this number were much larger, I would on my first push I'd be able to go in a lot deeper. But and if it were a lighter, lower number, inversely you wouldn't go in quite so deep. So let's go in deeper for the first push, right? See how deep it goes, right? Versus way not so deep. And if I push, it's not going in so far. All right, so that's different from the opacity, because the opacity is how much control I have when I push, and this one down here is how far will it push when I do push all the way, right? So push or pull. So with the Z key, I'm just going to back out of this. Okay, so that's the push tool, and then I'm going to reset everything. Take this value down and change from down to pull, right? So I could pull out. Okay, see, I'm pulling out some distance, Z. Let's use a different tool. So we'll pull out with this tool, we'll pull out with this tool. Notice how this one has a little bit more of a point. This is a little, let's use this tool here and show you how that one. So it's harder edge. This is a square. This is pulling out a square. It's kind of hard to see the the subtle differences in those, but basically, as you work with these, you'll get more familiar with what they're trying to do there. And then with the smooth tool, this is gonna smooth things out. The relax tool kind of relaxes it. It doesn't necessarily melt it back. It just sort of softens everything, kind of loosens it up. The erase tool really brings it just back to ground zero. So no matter what you do on it, ground zero. It looks a lot like the smooth tool. But if, for example, you created a mountain and then you put a little molehill on the mountain, the smooth tool would melt the molehill to the mountain, whereas the erase tool would melt the molehill back to the original ground. It would just melt it all the way down back to its origin. Okay. So let's see. I think that should give me enough to work with at this point. Um, Let me look around and see if there's, oh, the flood tool. What I might do is if I don't want to do undos, or if I lost undos somehow, I could hit the erase tool and then flood. So what that does is erase or smooth would affect the whole model. So flood erases the whole model. If you pulled or pushed, you would actually increase with a flood or decrease the size of the whole object. So it uses the tool and